Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another day of online learning. Great to have you here. If it's period 1 or 3, I believe it is Wednesday, and if it's period 4, should be uh, should be Thursday. So today's lesson is on poverty, and I'm doing a screencast lecture. And the way we do these screencast lectures is you're taking notes on the line on your Cornell Master. And on your Cornell Master, I've listed the topics on the line here for you. And so you would put these topics on the left side of your paper. And then on the right side of the paper, you want to put, 3 or 4 bullet points for each topic. If you want to follow along in the book, we're covering topic 7, lesson 6. So we're talking about poverty. This is just people in a situation where they can't afford to meet their needs. If you remember at the beginning of the semester, we talked about how economics is people's need to satisfy their wants and needs. We talked about the difference between wants and needs. A need being food, water, shelter. A want being that fancy car, fancy apparel, tickets to a Vanilla Ice concert, or your favorite musician, whatever that may be. So if you're living in poverty, not only are you struggling to meet your wants, you're also struggling to meet your needs. So we look here, I want you to type down the definition of the poverty threshold. The poverty threshold is the income below what's sufficient to support your family. So if you're a family of 1, you should have a certain income in order to survive. If you're a family of 3, there's a certain income that the government says you should meet in order to meet a basic standard of living. Well, if you make below that, then you are living below the poverty threshold. So our next topic is the causes of poverty. And the reasons people are living in poverty, whether they don't have a job, they're not able to afford their rent, or their job doesn't pay for their rent, they don't have sufficient means of transportation. Economists differ on the various reasons why people are living in poverty, but the book lists some general reasons why people live in poverty. So what we're looking at today is we're looking at the causes of poor, of why people are poor, the working poor, and looking at why people live in poverty and have a lack of income. So the first reason over there on the left side of your Cornell notes is changes in the family structure. So over the last 40 or 50 years here in America, we've seen a huge increase in divorce rates. I don't know what the current statistics of divorce are, but I believe it's around 50% of all marriages right now in America end in divorce. You can look it up if you want the exact number. But with the increase in divorce, you have a lot more single parent families, and particularly parents being raised by a single mom. And that's a very tough task to raise a family and have a wage at the same time. And obviously, a family has an advantage if you have 2 incomes coming in. And so, with the increase in single parent families, you have an increase in poverty. The second cause of poverty is where people live. And you want to put down that the majority of people that live in poverty are living either in the inner cities or in rural areas. That'd be small towns. So there's a lot more poverty as you go into the heart of a city. Major cities in the United States: Los Angeles, Seattle, Dallas, New York, Chicago, Tucson. All the major cities in America. As you go into the heart of the city, you'll see more poverty than, for example, if you are in the suburbs, the areas surrounding the city. Also, rural areas, small towns, farmers' wages have gone down. So a lot of people that live in small towns, that live in rural America, have been very frustrated over the last 5 to 10 years as poverty has increased in those areas. Um, and as you know, many areas in the Midwest, in the South, in the small towns, these are people that really came out and voted for the current president. And the current president said in 2016 that he would be a voice for rural America, and he would bring jobs back, and he would improve the economy in those areas. Opinion is split, obviously, on whether he has done that or not. Unequal treatment. The next cause of poverty would be unequal treatment, and discrimination in America has led to poverty. Statistically, white men earn more than minority men, and statistically, men earn more than women. So statistically, there are more minorities living in poverty. There are more women, especially single moms, living in poverty. So we've studied this semester how there are still discrepancies in America as far as what men are paid, what women are paid. Uh, there's less discrimination going on in America than in past years. Uh, there's less discrepancy in wages, but it's still a factor. So unequal treatment, discrimination against minorities, against women, can still lead to poverty. A change in the workforce. So this has been a big cause of poverty here in America. The workforce has changed, and we talked about this at the beginning of the semester. How America started out as an agricultural economy, went to a manufacturing economy. Now we're a technological economy. It used to be that you could have a high school diploma and earn a fairly nice living. That's becoming tougher and tougher to do. There are less manufacturing jobs. There are less factory jobs here in America. Factory jobs pay less than they used to. So typically, if you did not go to college, you find yourself with a service job. And the service economy has seen a lack of wages over the last 10 to 15 years. Um, People with college degrees are finding their wages going up a lot more than people that do not have college degrees. What's interesting, what we're going through right now in these unprecedented times, is what people are deemed as essential workers and non-essential workers. So a lot of people that have service level jobs, are feeding us right now, are keeping the country going, keeping food stocked at grocery stores, and a lot of people are calling for people that work in service jobs to make more money, because obviously we're seeing the importance of those jobs. You know, how much we're relying on brave people just to go to a supermarket right now and work and still provide food for us to eat, and basic services like that. The last factor of poverty is a lack of education. So kind of this is piggybacking on what we just said. Um, you know, and you did that when you did that right before spring break. You did a lesson called Earn More, Learn More, and you saw the correlation between education and earnings and standard of living. So the higher education you have, more likely the higher wage you're going to have. So lack of education can contribute to a lack of earnings, which can contribute to you being in poverty. And I'm sorry, there's actually one more factor when it comes to poverty, is income inequality. And so there's a chart. If you look on your book, there's a chart that breaks down America's income in the fifths, and you see the lowest 1/5 of Americans have 3% of all the wealth, and the highest fifth of Americans have 50% of the wealth. And so there's a lot of wealth, there's a lot of income in the United States. The problem is it's not being evenly distributed. Now, of course, the highest fifth would say that, and this is not necessarily not all true. The highest fifth have worked very hard for their wealth, whether it's their talent, their work ethic, going to school, earning a high education. But what many economists think, though, is the problem is we're not able to get more income into the lowest fifth and the second fifth. The second fifth of America only has 8% of the wealth. The third fifth, 14%. The fourth has 23, and the highest fifth has 50%. So that's almost 75% of the wealth with only 2/5 of the population. This was a big part of the Bernie Sanders platform, was that we need to do a better job of redistributing wealth and redistributing the economy. Um, Now, before we end this screencast lecture, let's talk about addressing poverty. So, the government will step in and try to provide services to help people living in poverty, help the poor. One controversy is the controversy of welfare. And so, there's poor people that don't have basic needs such as food, medical care. And so we have a welfare system that's set up in America to try to provide food, health care, services to the needy. The controversy behind that is some people think that welfare encourages some poor people to remain unemployed so they can keep receiving aid. And, some people think that people ask for welfare that don't really need to be on it. But then obviously there are people that do need to be on welfare. So it's a great debate in America, just how much we should provide for the poor. The book talks about a program that was put in place by President Clinton that was welfare to workfare, that tries to encourage Americans to get out and look for jobs. Now, the last topic of this lecture are cash transfers and in-kind benefits. So these are things that the government does to try to help the needy. Cash transfers can be anything from temporary assistance for needy families. Temporary assistance for needy families is when the federal government will give money to the state, and the state can provide aid to people, provide welfare, provide unemployment insurance. Usually, when you're on unemployment insurance, you have to provide documentation that you're looking for a job. Another example of a cash transfer is Social Security. Social Security are benefits for the elderly, or benefits for people who are disabled. And you'll actually do an assignment later on today that deals with Social Security, so you'll get more into that. And then workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is an example of a cash transfer. That's when you get hurt on the job, and the government will provide income to you when you've been injured on the job. In-kind benefits. In-kind benefits are services like reduced prices or food stamps. Subsidized housing. Subsidized housing's when the government will provide low-income housing to people that don't have a high income, so they'll limit your rent. Sometimes when you're in college, you can qualify for subsidized housing. And then medical benefits. Medicare covers Americans 65 and older. Medicaid, if your income is low enough, you can qualify for free health care from the government. So that concludes today's screencast. You're not done with today's lesson. Look online. I've posted an assignment for you to do today. What you're going to do is you're going to do some paragraph writing, and you want to look at the instructions for that assignment. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Hope again that you're doing well. We're washing our hands, and we're getting close to the end of the year. Seniors, you want to make sure that you're completing these assignments, because you need this class for graduation. That's right around the corner. And Hope everyone is having a wonderful month of May, and enjoy your weekend. And check back next week for another online lesson. Take care, everybody.